Susan, thank you so much for being here today, and welcome to the HelloPrenup Podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you about all things prenups and relationships. So first, tell me a little bit about your experience as a California attorney.
Well, I was one of the first, if not the first, family law mediator in San Francisco. And when I started doing mediation, the family law bar were very confused because it was not normal behavior. It was not litigation, and it was something that I believed was better for people to resolve their disputes without acrimony. Of course, we can't eliminate all acrimony from divorces, but I worked as a neutral mediator, and I developed a model for it. And the model that I developed is analogous to the work that I do today, even though I did family law mediation for decades. And during that period, I also mediated prenups and drafted prenups with the couple before me. And so now here we are, fast forward, having had so much experience as a family law attorney and working in a variety of ways, I now work as a personal strategy consultant. And I work privately with people to advise and consult on how they can navigate whatever roadblocks there are within their communication in their family system. And that segues right into HelloPrenup.
Prenups. So tell me a little bit about what changes you've seen in prenups since you first started doing them. We won't say how many years ago,
right,
to today.
Right.
What changes have you seen, just generally?
Well, I've seen much more adaptation to the notion of prenups. When I was doing them early on, it was usually the trust fund kid whose family wanted them to have a prenup. Sure. But now I'm seeing more and more millennials, both of whom want a prenup, embrace the concept. I see all ages. Not long ago, I had a couple who were in their 70s who were doing a prenup. Yes, so prenups are for everyone. They set the stage for the marriage, and they are the business of the marriage. Yes. So that's what's so great about prenups.
And I want to ask you some of the differences, the most obvious differences you see between the prenups for couples on their first marriage versus prenups for couples who are maybe on their second or third marriage.
Well, the differences are that most of the first marriages have gone without a prenup. And so they come into HelloPrenup saying that will never happen to me again. And what I do is I talk with them about what happened and talk with them about how their fiance feels about this new approach. And they want to secure their assets because they have perhaps been burned.
Sure.
Perhaps. But the point is, both parties want to secure their assets. Sure. I'm seeing that more and more. And I'm seeing as many women as men that want prenups. Prenups are here to stay. This is the new way of being, is you have your conversation about finances before you get married, just like you try out everything before marriage, right? So why not try out how do we handle our finances?
And how do you see prenups being effective, equally as effective for women? Because historically, we both know, prenups have been thought of as this tool to protect an older man, maybe marrying a younger woman or
Right.
a trust fund baby.
Right.
How do you think prenups can protect women?
Prenups can protect both parties because there is a discussion up front about the business of the marriage and the views that each of them hold with respect to finances. But it's not only about money. It's about love. And so I don't like to really bring in the D word. Yeah. I avoid it. I avoided it decades ago, and I still do. Sometimes I say, well, if the worst case happens, or the worst case scenario, how would you look at it then? How would you handle it then? Right. But both parties are protected because they know exactly what they're going into. It's clear, they have an understanding, and they've had the communication, the tough communication with each other. And what I tell my clients is, look, you've already had the tough conversation. This has not been easy for you to sit down and talk about the so-called nuts and bolts of the marital finances. But now that you have, going forward, you are ready for what life brings. Because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the unexpected occurs. And when it does, I tell them, you will be ready because you've already traveled this difficult road. And when you encounter other roadblocks in life, in your marriage, you just have to work harder. You have to sit down and communicate with each other and talk it over, just as you have this prenup. And remember these moments of love going forward. Because when things happen, first of all, the prenup is going into your drawer. And people are very, very relieved when I tell them it's going into their drawer. And I say, it's volcano insurance. And sometimes they laugh or they chuckle, but then it's the fact. It's there if you need it, but only if you need it. And I even take them further down the road and I say, look, you know, at various points when I'm reviewing their document, various points I say, look, if the worst case happens, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to sit down and talk to each other. And see if you can cut a deal. And I tell them that I was one of the first, if not the first, family law mediators in San Francisco, and I am always looking for solutions. So what's the solution here? What is the impediment to a deal? Let's say you have 6 issues, and you've reached 5. Then go to the mediator. Sit down with the mediator, get the facilitation of the mediator on item 6. And you're signing up for 2 sessions, because I really encourage them to take the alternative dispute resolution clause and insert it into the document. I think it's very important. And I tell them that. But I say, look, even if after 2 sessions you don't have it resolved, go for 10. Keep going, but never go to court. And I tell them there are no winners in family law court.
Truth.
So
I agree with that statement.
That's right. That's right. And so stay with the mediator until you have a deal, and then either have the mediator draft up your marital settlement agreement or do it some other way. But never go to court.
And let me ask you, Susan, so I always say as family law attorneys, we, in so many ways, have the best insight on what works in a relationship and what causes a marriage to fail. So given your experience and given all of the prenups and happy marriages that you have seen, and the awful divorce cases that you have worked on, what is the best relationship or marriage advice that you could give a couple?
Communicate. There are so many times where people say to me something that is inside. It's almost as if it's in a whisper. And I encourage them to go directly to their fiancé and explain to their fiancé what it is that's bothering them or what it is they're afraid to ask. But to explain the reasons that they want it, so that they can bring their fiancé into the fold with their internal psychological and their internal fears, if there are fears, or concerns, or ideas about how to go forward and equalize, and empower both parties. You see, in my world of mediation, family law mediation, it was often that I had one or the other that we see in our prenups, where perhaps one is a larger earner and the other is a lesser earner. And that sets some kind of an unfair and insecurity that exists, and it permeates the marriage. So
How do you solve for that?
you solve for it by balancing the power. And you show the client how to balance the power. And whether I have the larger earner or the lesser earner, I still discuss this topic. Sometimes a larger earner will say to me, well, I'm just going to do it this way, and then that'll be protection for me. And of course, I'm this larger earner's lawyer, so I'm supposed to be on board with that. And I am on board with it. And I'm also on board with what makes the balance flow. So I offer something that he or she could say to their fiancé that would be a way for the fiancé to understand better and maybe not go so dramatically in that direction, but perhaps pull it back a little bit and find a better balance so that both parties can go in with their own independent thinking, their own egalitarian relationship, and move forward as two empowered individuals. That is the goal.
And I know that you have represented so many super high net worth, very successful individuals, whether they be entrepreneurs or in tech, who are marrying a lesser earning party.
Right.
And how do you feel that the relationship dynamic changes from the moment that you first speak to them to when the prenup is finished? Does that dynamic change over the course of those negotiations?
It does, because sometimes people come into the prenup world with the idea that they have to, quote, protect and defend their assets. And what I do is I promote the concept of marriage and love and the relationship and what it will look like going forward if you do this or if you choose another path. Sure. And so I'm looking at the long-term relationship for this couple before me. I'm not just there as an editor to help them change a few words. I talk to them about what the concepts mean. And so I hope that was an answer to your question.
That's a great answer. No, it's a great answer. And so, Susan, when we first met, it was at the very beginning of HelloPrenup. And I think at that point, it was the platform was not as robust as it is today. We weren't in as many states, but we were really excited about integrating attorney services. So you are an attorney who has referred clients through HelloPrenup. Tell me a little bit about those clients, your experience with the platform, and how you think the platform facilitates that kind of essential communication, premarital communication that we just talked about.
Oh, it absolutely does. And I tell clients, because clients often ask me, well, why is this better? Is this good? Is this legitimate? I get questions like that. And I say, not only is it legitimate, but I was there at the inception. And I can tell you that the number of lawyers who have worked on this document, to draft this document, is unquantifiable. And the user-friendly and the clarity of this document, it is a document that fits all formulas, all needs, because it's so clear. It's so separate property, community property. And I tell people, there's a misconception out there. And the misconception is that when you have a prenup, that you're constrained by your prenup. But you are not. It's the exact opposite. You have complete latitude with this prenup. Not only is it more cost effective, because I can just tell you what I charged when I was drafting them.
Tell us what you charged. Tell us.
Well, for sure. I mean, it was rare that people left the office after weeks and weeks of negotiating clauses without having paid $10,000. Okay, but it wasn't because of me. It's just that it took that long. It takes a long time to get it right and for both parties to agree. And so the great thing about HelloPrenup is that both parties are filling it out independently of each other, and they get affirmed when they match their answers. And they tell me that. I was so relieved to think that she thought the same as I do. And believe me, I have as many men as women, so I work with both. But they are affirmed when they match, their answers match. And so it's interesting because they're both approaching it differently, and yet sometimes they want to discuss. Let's say one or two of the clauses is different. Then this initiates or it stimulates a conversation between them where they're talking about things that are very close to their heart, but they would not, under any circumstances, discuss this. I mean, I have people who call me who have 2 attorneys, and they are afraid that there's too much acrimony going on. So they want my help to help them to communicate to their lawyer about tone it down. Keep it down.
Is this within HelloPrenup?
No, it's outside of HelloPrenup. And then I have the opportunity to tell them about HelloPrenup and the way it can work, which is collegially, which is jointly, which is non-adversarial, and enables people to make their own contract. And I tell people at the end of our meeting, and they say, can I do this? Can I do this? Will the document let me do that? The document lets you do whatever you want, because the document enables accumulation of community property to the nth degree, if you wish, or none. It's up to you. And as the marriage progresses, minds change because life happens to people.
What do you think is the most common combination or the combination that you have seen most recently with respect to separate property and community property? How are people contracting? How are they thinking about it?
They are thinking about, well, I want some community property afterwards, but I want to make sure that I hold on to all of my separate property. And how do I do that? And do I leave the earned income out of the mix, or do I include it into the separate property? And I err on leave it in. And the reason I err on leave it in is because then it's very clear for the forensic accountant, the interloper, who may, in the worst case scenario, intercede, and they then can see very clearly separate versus community. And I tell them there's no reason to leave it out, because then you have a clear delineation, you have an imaginary wall around your separate property, and then you can create, as you go along in the marriage, as much community property as you wish, using A, B, or C in Roman numeral 2, which says we are assuming there is no community property here unless A, B, or C happens.
Yes.
And so they can choose A, B, or C if they wish, or not.
Tell me about your experience with HelloPrenup. When we first met,
Yes.
attorney services looked very different.
Yes.
How do you experience attorney services now? Tell me about how you get clients. Tell me about how you edit the document.
Oh, okay. Well, I love the work so much that, you're only going to get good words from me, because I love the work.
Yeah.
I love working with these people who are at the inception of their lives, and I feel a responsibility to give them advice about what the future holds and taking it further. The difference between then and now is it is way more streamlined. It is far more user-friendly. There are no uphill battles about how to figure out this or that. It's there. The editor is there. The finances are separated. The support, the HelloPrenup support is superb. And oftentimes when I'm on the phone with a client is asking me something, we may need to contact support. We do it right then and there when we're together. Everything is moving like a well-greased wheel right now.
Walk me through your experience as an attorney with HelloPrenup.
Okay, it is so wonderful because I get a click, and the click says, "You have a client." And I'm so excited that I have a client that I immediately send the client an email that I'm looking forward to meeting them, I'm looking forward to our meeting, and I confirm the time. On some occasions, if the time is as it was today at 9 a.m., and I was a little busy at 9 a.m. today, coincidentally, so I had to reschedule. So immediately sent an email last night and phoned it also to confirm. So for me, it is great to get the resource, to get the client, and they're receptive when we're together. And then what I do is I do it a little differently because I know I only have an hour to get to know them. And I want them to feel seen. So I work at listening very carefully to what their concerns are, what it is that they wanted from this prenup, and then we discuss it. I put a pin in it, and I tell them, for example, they may ask a question. Well, can I do this or can I do that? And I say to them, I will show you where that is available to you in the prenup. And when we get there, I will remind you of this question you asked me, and I will show you how it's answered in the document. So as a lawyer, I'm getting questions that are germane, and I'm able to quickly answer them because of the quality of the document and because they are already pre-screened and they are susceptible to advice. And they appreciate the fact that, I mean, I don't care whether it's an hour. I know they booked me for an hour, but I don't care whether it's an hour or it's an hour and 15, or it's sometimes they want just off.
How do you think the HelloPrenup agreement, the contract itself, compares to other agreements that you have seen in your many years in practice?
The HelloPrenup is far superior to any documents that I have received, and I do receive many of them, from attorneys out there. And my vignette for you is that I received one not long ago from a lawyer with whom I have worked and is a 40-year lawyer and knows everything there is about business, patents, family law, a really great lawyer. And when I saw him recently, I told him, your template for prenups needs a little update. And it was so, and he laughed because he's such a trooper lawyer. And because it was archaic and it was filled with legalese, which people don't want. And what I do is I work with the client and say, I'm going to take you through this document in plain English. And they're so relieved. And the other thing that I think is important to say is that when we are finished working together, I tell them this document should be in your drawer and you should never open your drawer unless you need it. And they're very relieved about that too, because there's a lot of angst in developing these clauses and developing and talking with their fiance. But they're talking. That's the good news. And so the power imbalance that I worked so hard as a family law mediator to discover is here. Inevitably, it's part of the process. The egalitarian, the equalization of the opportunity for each party to express their own needs and desires. It's open. But the other thing is that the acrimony is removed because there is no big bad lawyer on either side. It's a document in front of them which does not involve an adversarial person. It is only a document which they can choose to click or not.
So, Susan, as family law attorneys, we know that it can be hard to market yourself, right? We've all dealt with those big marketing companies who are charging us a crazy amount of money to get leads that are not always high quality. So tell me about your experience with HelloPrenup as an attorney and how you acquire clients.
Well, I acquire clients through HelloPrenup. HelloPrenup is my best friend because HelloPrenup sends me emails daily. and
A lot of emails.
I'm ecstatic to receive every single one of them because they're all good. And you know, it's especially good because I know the women in this startup, and they are all power women who have all worked as attorneys. They are all tech. They are all very open to other information from resources that they've acquired to make this HelloPrenup.com the unbelievable experience it is for clients. I mean, it's great for attorneys. I mean, for sure it's great for attorneys because there's no way I would get all of these prenups. I get some prenups, but I don't get multiple prenups. I just finished on Monday of this week. I just concluded 3 prenups that I started in the morning and I finished by the end of the day. And so that is what is so great for clients and for lawyers. Because if I have a cooperative attorney on the other side who understands the need for get this over with, because that's what clients want. They want to get in and they want out. And I tell them, spend your time planning your wedding. Get this behind you as quickly as possible. And we do.
What would you say to those attorneys who say HelloPrenup is bad for lawyers?
Bad for lawyers?
Yes, it's bad for lawyers. It takes business away from lawyers. What would you say to them?
because HelloPrenup is so cost effective for the clients that it's the same as when I started doing mediation. The same thing. The family law bar wanted to litigate everything. And here again, the attorneys that are saying HelloPrenup is bad for lawyers because lawyers cannot charge $20,000 to draft a prenup because a client can get an excellent, clear understanding of what they are moving toward with whatever it is, $5.99.
What would you say to individuals who think, I can't use HelloPrenup. I have too many assets or my assets are too complex for HelloPrenup?
I've heard that many times. I refute it every time.
Why?
Why? Because we have disclosures in prenups, and disclosures take care of all of that. There's no reason why a high net worth person who is, in any case, because I just recently talked to someone and they gave me the figures of what they paid for a prenup in New York, high net worth couple, and it was ludicrous because this document covers it all and they just have to disclose because that's required.
But what about the complexity of the HelloPrenup agreement? Do you think that the document itself covers clauses and points and disclosures that are necessary for a high net worth individual?
Yes, because you can insert anything at all that you want if you can personalize it. The lawyer can help you personalize it with the edit portion. But I have to say, Julia, that I edit less and less. Not more, less. Because the document has been updated so many times and refined that it really covers everything. And if I edit, it's a sentence or it's a word, or I've added proportional to something or pro rata to something that is being shared in a way that the couple wants. But the document is so superb that anybody with any amount of money will be covered. And I don't want to use the word protected. When people call me and they say, I want to be protected, I say you want to share a document with your spouse, your newly wedded spouse. And then we have other issues that we deal with, such as, well, they're both tech workers, so they both have their own income, and nobody wants to give up their job, and there might be a child coming, so what to do? about losing a job to be the stay-at-home parent. It could be either either spouse. It doesn't matter. It can be same gender spouses or any. It doesn't matter. But the question is, who's going to take care of the child?
On that point, Susan, how do you think prenups have changed over the course of your practice?
Prenups have changed in the sense that people understand them a lot better. They're predisposed to getting them. They want them, but not because it's a negative thing, but because it's a positive thing. Positivity is coming to HelloPrenup in spades, because HelloPrenup has a number of women behind it that have formed this startup. When I tell people I work for a women-owned startup, and I proudly say that.
We're honored to have you.
And I know Julia for so long, and it's just unbelievable how it has grown, how you've created something. You found a need and you filled it.
If you could give advice to an engaged couple who was considering a prenup or not, what would that advice be?
I would tell the couple that clarity in their finances is so much to their advantage with their marriage going forward. And having this communication now, which may be tough, will set the stage for their future life. And I also would tell the couple that this document is not a mandate for living. It is not a mantra. I end my conversations with couples by saying, go on with living. Go on with your marriage, live life, enjoy your marriage in every way possible, work at it. If you hit a bump in the road, work at it, but go forward, enjoy, and do not look in this drawer to see what the prenup says. Because in life, married people do a lot of things, and things happen. Documents are signed, or things are exchanged. Money is exchanged. Don't worry about the prenup. Go forward, live life, and only open the drawer if you need it. And then I say, and never need your prenup.
I love it. What great advice. Thank you so much, Susan, for being here today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.